Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today we are discussing one of the earliest references from Bethune of Lauberson, Switzerland. This is the DB12. It is a chrono calendar that uses a highly modified and finished Venus 175 manual wind chronograph base movement, because in the earliest days of Bethune, not only did the watches look very different, not only were volumes much lower, but customer calibers were used until the first in-house movements arrived in 2004. This model was launched in 2003, and it is incredibly scarce, as only 31 DB12s of all descriptions were produced, and only 14 were made in white gold, like the example you see here. These were truly low-volume handmade watches. Taking a look at the size, you can see the original DB1 case design, which was originated with the first watch in 2002. It survives here, 42 millimeters in diameter. It features the cabochon or ogival bullet tip lug profiles. It's thinner than it looks at 13.3 millimeters thick, and it's 46.1 millimeters lug tip to lug tip, which makes it narrower across the wrist than you'd think. It does have a broad spacing of 22 millimeters between the lugs. Now I'm going to throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and the timepiece wears easily, comfortably, and surprisingly short across the wrist. Look at how much space I've got on each side. I have plenty of space to wear this on a smaller wrist, and I would even go so far as to say this watch would wear well on a 14 centimeter circumference wrist, because you can see even over the top, I've got plenty of clearance. There's no lug overlap, nor are they even in danger of overlapping, because it does have a domed bezel, and again, it's thinner than it looks. It will slide underneath a dress cuff. The strap is medium rectangular scale alligator leather with a matte finish, a monotone stitch, a sheer cut edge, and you can see on the bottom, small round scale alligator leather, and this is a Bethune factory spec strap. Gator on both sides is the hallmark of the best straps these days, as it ensures that, contrary to calfskin on the bottom, gator on the bottom leads to a longer lasting and more expensive strap, and on a watch like this, a few $100 extra is easily worth it. You can see that there's no crimping, no gouging. This is a brand new strap, and then we have a matching white gold pin buckle, and you can see these maker's marks here. This is old school stuff. This is one of the first 3 white gold DB12s made. Taking a quick look at the case, I mentioned that this is the DB1 case. The first Bethune watch, the DB1 chronograph, was made in 2002, and it used a very classical design. Guilloche dial, round case, traditional integrated lugs, but with little bullet tips at the end. Whether you call them ogival, torpedoes, bullets, rocket caps, they add a lot of prominence to lugs that are otherwise fairly short-cropped and unobtrusive. The entire case is polished, and as you can see, it's very sheer in profile. We have ovalized, vintage-inspired chronograph pushers. We have a double knurled crown. We have a little pusher adjuster that sits adjacent. That's used for jumping and indexing the month indication, and then, this being a vintage caliber, you adjust the double-digit date, the grande date, the old-fashioned way, using the crown itself. It doesn't have a quick set, but if you take your time, you'll get where you're going. The watch features a vague or wave pattern at center, and this is real Roselet the guilloche, not the stamped kind. You can see everything on the silver-white dial is printed in dark blue for a nice warm contrast. We have semi-instantaneous jumping of the minutes, one of the features of the underlying caliber, and then there's a dental-like molding, or a very shallow straight-line pattern that runs around the center dial, with sunken sub-registers for chronograph minutes and running seconds, and each one features a concentric pattern internally. Turn it all over. This is about as good as it gets in watchmaking. Now, the movement has been heavily modified by Bethune, first to add the complications, but second to achieve a level of finish commensurate to the brand's billing. This is not your standard Venus 175. Take a look at it. Manual wind, 18,000 vibrations per hour, an overcoil hairspring. It features the semi-instantaneous jumping minutes. It features a column wheel with a blued center fixing screw and a lovely lateral clutch. All the lateral clutch components are satinated across their top and mirror beveled on their edges. So you've got the recentering hammers, the levers, the horns that index the column wheel, the clutch itself. All these parts are made of steel. So they're beveled on their sides, satinated on their top. We have here locating pegs. You can see them in some locations, and they have been black polished on their tops with engine-turned perlage in at least 2 sizes on the base plate. You can also see that we have a combination of Côte de Genève on the bridges where they are visible. You see true abrasive wheel stripes, not the kind that are stamped, but abrasive wheel. We have mile-wide anglage that is truly artisanal, executed by hand and finished with gentian wood, and all of the blued screws here are blued the old-fashioned way with heat. You can also see that there's a black polished steel swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism, and then there's a little jumper and jumper spring for the minute counter. You can see the lateral clutch engaging and disengaging with the chronograph center wheel, and then the recentering hammers fall and reset everything. All this was water resistant to 30 meters in its day, but don't test the theory today. Now, de Bethune rates this as a 30-hour power reserve with the addition of the complication, though a standard Venus 175 has a 45-hour manual wind power reserve, and I suspect reality is somewhere between those two numbers. Just think of it as a minimum of 30 and a maximum of 45, and that's probably the best way to look at it. Only 14 of these exist in the world. White gold DB12, one of the earliest foundational models from de Bethune. The earliest models are always the most collectible, and this is the first example of a DB12 I've ever encountered. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.